All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Studio 770. I'm so thrilled. We have an amazing guest. She will introduce herself, but she's very, very humble. I'll say that I met her. She's got some real estate here in the city, and we had hosted her for Shabbos. And those of you that don't know me, I'm your host, Rabbi Zevi Weinberg, and I'm the author of about 20 books on Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism. And I have a website, Kabbalah Wisdom, which I'd love you to go to. Without further ado, Dina Chava, can you maybe introduce yourself?
Shalom. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you, Rabbi. Thank you for welcoming me to your show. It's mamash an honor to be here and a lot of fun. It's good to see you. And you mentioned in Kansas City. It was like really the share from Hashem that he just guided me to your home. So wow. I got really so much out of it.
Wow. Okay, great. So I remember you telling me that you basically, a lot of it may be from your own need, and you're quite bright, if I may say, you've looked into every single therapy under the sun. Is that correct?
A lot.
And you have finally come up with, and I have to make a total disclaimer that I myself had this, if you want to call it therapy or treatment, with Dina Chava, and I can say that, I don't know, I'll let you discuss it, but it's almost like by the time I finished, it was like you were my twin sister along for the journey of my life.
Oh my God.
And the thing is that Hashem really used you to unlock a lot of doorways, and it's been really, really powerful. And so I thought, what would be really interesting, very important actually for a lot of people, is if you could just share how you came, maybe your own personal journey. You didn't start off religious and you became a believer. Maybe you were always a believer, then you became spiritual, and how you found this therapy, what this therapy does. And also, if you have any messages for people, there are a lot of people out there that are really desperate for some inspiration.
Right. Very much so. And as I am, and I'm sure you are too. I mean, this is what it's about. People giving of themselves so that others will benefit. We receive, and it's like breath. The world is like breath. It's you give and you receive, and it's a continuous cycle. So what we're doing right now is the hope that others will hear and benefit, God willing, and they will go back and in turn benefit the rest of us. So that is really the hope for this meeting today. So yeah, I like you said, I'm an energy healer. I work with all kinds of people. I work with people who mostly women come to me. For the most part, they find me, and either they're physically ill, a lot of cancer, unfortunately, and they come for emotional blockages as well. And I have to say, many of the women who find me come in the heels of sexual trauma from childhood specifically, which until I started working in this field, I had no idea that there's so much that is so prevalent. I think I had to learn, and I'm saying this now because anybody watching this topic, if you yourself were not touched by this, hopefully in your life, be very careful when you speak, because in any given situation, most likely there will be people there who had been affected by sexual molestation as children. It's just so much more of an issue than I ever could have imagined. So it's difficult. So I work with people who need relief. They need physical relief. They need emotional relief. They need to open up. And so that would make, this is a good point for me to start talking about my spiritual journey, how I learned to open up and to seek relief really from Hashem. Oh, I didn't grow up religious, and I grew up very, I can't even say respectful of religion, because we were traditional, but at the same time, I had this belief that there's religious people and then there's normal people. And right. So in time, but I was always very, very deeply Zionistic, very deeply connected with our heritage as Jews. That was always very important to me. And I found myself being drawn more and more to Judaism. Chabad knocked the ball out of the park for me. Chabad really took me in and my family, enveloped us with love as they do anywhere in the world that you see Chabad. That's what they specialize in, just caring and caring for you as a person. And so that helped us, all of us, just enter into Judaism with more trust. I want to fast forward and actually just talk about what really, really got me into this kind of therapy. And that would have to start around, gosh, 8 years ago when my son was in first grade. He started first grade here. And I live in, by the way, I live in Israel, in the beautiful city of Modi'in. We are surrounded by the Judean hills. And my son's school, first grade, was a brand new building located on the outskirts of the town, and across the street was the end of the town, and there was nature. And you know, if you look, it's hills, and if you look further, the hills get taller and they get taller, and basically you're looking in the direction of Jerusalem. And it's gorgeous, and it's empty, and it's just untouched. And I thought, wow, I should just go take the dog and go for a walk there. And I thought about that for a year. I would drive him to school. I'd look at the hills. I'd say, wow, that would be really great. And the whole year went by. Now, at this point, my kid is in second grade. The first week of school started. I got the dog and I crossed the street and I went into the hills and I pretty much stayed there for 5 years. I was there for 5 years. That was the focus of my life. I did come out of the hills to pick up my son from school and to do what people need to do. But, you know, at the time, I remember my sister said to me, my sister lives in the UK. I don't get to see her too much. She said, hey, what are you up to? What do you do with yourself? And I said, I meditate. You know, it just totally fell flat. I walk with the dog. And I would make sure, by the way, that I had no obligations, right, that would cut things short, because then I wouldn't be able to focus. I'd be thinking about what I need to do. I made sure that my appointments would be in the late afternoon, so I'd have the whole morning free, and I would force myself to stay there until I found Hashem, which really means until I found myself. It's interchangeable. Until I found myself, until I touched an area very deep within myself, and that's where you find Hashem. I would be there for an hour and a half to 3 hours, like on average, every time. And, you know, it's not so easy to do this. It's not so easy to get yourself motivated to open up like this. Sometimes I would sit in that car for 45 minutes staring at those hills before I could get myself to get out and say, I would say, you're not going anywhere until you go. I just couldn't get myself to go, you know. But I would go, and in order to get myself into the mode to just put away like the rhythm of the Western world of like gotta you know, keep going at a certain pace, I would you know, I would look at the beauty around me, nature, and try to feel gratitude that I'm finally in the land of Israel. I dreamed about being here for so long, and here I am. I would often look at my feet and say, look at your feet. Can you not be grateful right now for where you were standing? Sometimes I would listen to podcasts just like this one, just to get a feel of what it means to just breathe and just to be, as opposed to trying to be somebody. And when I would feel like I'm opening him up enough, I'm relaxing enough, when I felt like a sudden connection, I said, that's it, now you can start praying. And I would take out my siddur. I would bring a siddur, and I brought a Sefer Tehillim, and I would do the Amidah. The Amidah would take me literally that hour and a half, 2 hours. And I remember I told my friend about it once. I said, yeah, it takes me a couple hours to pray. She's like, I don't get it. It takes me 10 minutes. She thought I was doing something, like I'm an Olah Hadasha, I'm new to Israel. I don't really know what I'm doing. It should only take 10 minutes, Um, yeah. So I want to, what's important for me, if I can, in order to explain what it is that I actually do, I think it's important that I explain what I discovered in those hills, and what I went through. So I found out when you spend so much time with yourself and your dog, you discover whole things about yourself that you never knew. You discover things about God. You discover things about your ancestors and your past. You discover things about what the world is. Every day would be something else. Every day would be some other, taglit, I'm forgetting English, a discovery. And I want to give you an example of something I went through once. I came to the hills with the intent to pray and open up to God. And it just wasn't happening. I was feeling very agitated. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to hurry up. I wanted to go. And so in my mind, I knew why I was there, and I knew that it wasn't going well. And so I asked myself, I said, hey, what's up with you? And the answer came, I can't be here now. I'm very, very busy. And I said, really? I said, what do you need to do? I asked myself. And then the answer was, I have important things to do. I was like, wow, okay, what do you need to do? Like, spell it out. And the answer came, I have to go to the supermarket. And then when it came out, then I realized, I said to myself, okay, I mean, as important as going to the supermarket is, I'm a mother of 4, you got to have food in the house. On the other hand, the supermarket's going to be there waiting for me even after I pray. So then I said to myself, all right, you're not going anywhere. You're going to stand on this spot. And my eyes fell on a little leaf on a little plant next to me, in front of me. And I said, you're going to stare at this leaf until you are going to be so in awe of looking at, of being with this leaf, that you're not going to want to leave. That was my assignment. So I don't know, I came up with it at that moment. So I stared at the leaf, that I found this little leaf, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah. And I kept looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. And then I noticed how it moved very gently in the breeze. And I thought, oh, that's sweet. And then I looked at it and I saw it had like these veins on the leaf. And the veins were supplying the leaf with what it needed. And I also saw on the edge of it, there was this glow from the sun that was behind it. And it was kind of moving, and it was really a beautiful thing. And I thought, wow, that's really beautiful. I come from an art background. I said, I wonder, could I draw this leaf the way I see it? And the answer was like, there's no way I'd be able to represent the perfection that's in front of me. This is a living thing. And then I thought to myself, you can't even reproduce it with a 2-dimensional image. Think about creating it. Could you ever think about creating something like this? I mean, it's a whole mechanism in itself. A leaf it provides a function, it grows, and then it withers. It has a whole life, and it was created. And I couldn't even think of drawing it, capturing it in 2 dimensions, let alone creating it. And at that point, I was at awe in this leaf. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I said to myself, all right, Dina Chava, I want you to just take a step back. I want you to notice there's another leaf right next to it, another creation, another perfect example of wonderment that exists in this world right there. Look, there's 2 of them. And I was just like, wow, there's 2 of them. And then I said, okay, now look back a little bit. There's a whole branch. And that at that point, it's almost mind blowing. It's like, how was this done? I mean, if you had to think about manufacturing a leaf, what would it take? It's just, and then there's a whole branch of them, like just so many of them. And then I said, and now I want you to look at the whole plant. And at that point, there's like hundreds of leaves. And I'm like, no, this is too much. This is too much. And then I said, now I want you to look at the whole vista in front of you. And this is just like, you can't even absorb. You can't absorb what's in front of you, because in front of me, as far as the eye could see, were trees, which we're talking about. I can't even count how many leaves we're talking about. Each one of them was created. Each one of them is alive. Each one of them serves a purpose. Each one of them is perfect. And they're all there. And I was, at that moment, I was just in awe of Hashem, in awe of everything around me. I can tell you this, the supermarket was the furthest thing from my mind. And, you know, when I tell you this story, I feel like when I remember that moment, I feel it now too. I feel, you know, I'm breathing in a different way now. I'm just feeling much calmer because I'm not caught up in the stuff that pulls you away from your true self, from who you are. So that's one example of what I came across in my spiritual journey. Should I give another one?
Please.
It was 5 years.
Great. We're
It was 5 years ago. Okay. So let's see. There was, you know, most of the time when you would encounter Hashem, after you cross a barrier of getting rid of yourself and your thoughts that really don't matter, and just be at that moment, you can see, you can actually see a light. You can see this golden white, warm light that has a presence, and you can feel that it's aware that you're there. It's and there's no way to be in the presence of this light without really just crying, because you're just awash with a feeling of love. We are so loved. We are so loved. If only we stop and pay attention. If only we allow ourselves to experience it. It's there with us all the time, this light, this love. So there was a day I went to the hills and I was upset. You mentioned that I do work in Kansas City. We hired somebody, this is before I knew, and it was clear that he wasn't doing his job. It had been months, he stopped calling, it was getting, and we were far away, and I felt like I was losing my grip of anything that's happening over there. And this man who's supposed to be working for us, I kind of put two and two together. He was collecting money from us that we agreed to pay him, yet on the other hand, he was working for someone else. And I thought to myself, you know, an honest person just says, it's not working for me anymore. I have something else to do, you know, let's part ways. That's, you know, that's honorable and fine. But instead, he was kind of taking advantage, kind of pulling us along, it was very unclear. And I thought, why would someone do that? Why would someone be so dishonest? Why would someone just take money when they don't, not only are they not working for it, but they can see they're causing damage to the other person that they're taking money from. And I thought that's just so cruel. And I was upset, and I was standing there in the field, and I was just, I had tears in my eyes. And you know, you're in nature with beauty and wonder and good, right? Why would anybody act that way? At that moment, I couldn't even understand. Why would anybody be cruel? And I turned to God and I just said to him, I don't understand your creation. I don't get it. Why is this here? And, you know, I just stood there and I kind of cried for a bit. Then I said, all right, Dina Chava, time to get the show on the road. Take out your Tehillim. I took it upon myself to read one. At that time, I was reading one psalm every time I went out. So I had the next one that was due to be read was Psalm 36. So I opened up the book and I started reading. And this is, I'm going to read a little bit from what I read. So this is while I have tears in my eyes for saying to Hashem, I don't understand. How is it possible that somebody would be cruel in this world? I don't understand why you would allow that, Hashem. And this is what I read. A discourse of transgression to the wicked is in the midst of my heart. There is no fear of God before his eyes, for it smooths away before his eyes, causing God to discover his iniquity. The words of his mouth are iniquity and deceit. He has ceased to apply his mind to do good. Iniquity he devises on his bed. He sets himself on a path of no good. Evil he does not abhor. And then it goes on to say, the children of man take refuge in the shadow of your wings. They will be filled from the abundance of your house, from the streams of your fertile lands. You will give them to drink. For with you is a source of life. Your light shall we see light. In your light, we shall see light. Extend your kindness to those who know you. So in that moment, instead of saying, wow, that really calms me down, I feel that was very appropriate and good, I was just like, oh, I was like, wait a minute. Hashem literally just answered me in this moment. I asked him a question. I said, Hashem, I do not understand your creation. And he gave me an answer at that moment. And at that, I couldn't even like focus. I was just like, oh, this is just, a bit much. So there's a discourse with Hashem that also happens when you open up. That's another result of just allowing yourself to step away from the normal pace of everyday life. Things come to you, things that are there all along, but you just don't hear them. So that was another example. And really, there's just so many, really so many about, I'd learned things about myself, about people in my life that I love, about my history. Yeah. So, okay. So maybe now I'll talk a little bit about what I do.
Please.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, everything's great. It's fascinating. It's amazing. And I would just say that, and we're living in a world that 64% believe they have a personal relationship with God. So hit us.
Where did you hear that? 64%. That's okay.
Yeah, that's from Gallup poll. They do
okay.
84%. Yeah, go ahead.
As long as the numbers are going up, we're in good shape.
True.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
Okay. So as I said, I'm an energy healer, and people come to me when they have dis-ease. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be problems in the family, it could be really anything, for any reason. And, holistic medicine comes from the word whole, where you treat the whole. You treat the whole self, and the details will take care of themselves. I actually learned that from Rabbi Levin. He's from Palo Alto. He told me that once when I was having problems in my life. He said, treat your life holistically. He said, raise yourself.
Interesting.
And you'll find that everyone else around you will be raised as well. Mm-hmm. So he says, it's not your problems, raise yourself.
Wow.
So
powerful.
Yeah, really is. Okay, so people come to me, and they just lie down on a table. If it's virtual, I just ask them to be resting and not be doing things, really just to allow themselves to receive the energy, the treatment. And I have to add this in. The next thing that happens is there's a few very awkward moments that happen every single time. The person's lying there, and I put my hands by their head to feel the flow of energy. and nothing happens. I mean, literally. And at that moment, I feel like a sham, you know? And I was just like, oh my God, look at this. This person is coming here, is completely trusting in you, lying on the table. And what are you gonna do? You know, like, and at that point, I have to knock myself down many levels. And I have to talk to God and say, all right, Hashem, this is not about me. This person came here for help. This person is in pain. And for their sake, please help them. And I'm here to do whatever it is that to facilitate for the sake of this person. And usually that's all it takes, because by then I can already feel in my hands the initial energy flow on the point of ketiv. I think it's probably important to mention, and you can jump in and help me out, as you've written 20 books, and I don't know if I've even read 20 books, but so when I'm treating a person, this method, by the way, is I learned from a man called Dr. Dudi Adler. He took the Kabbalah's idea of the Sefirot, the emanations of God, the energy and presence of God in this world that appears in different forms, and that they're represented on the human body in different places. So what does that mean? It means, first of all, we can all imagine energy just flowing. You know, like if you rub your hands together, you can feel this ball of energy. That's pretty standard. People do this in Tai Chi, and you can feel that. That is just the energy that exists. And maybe we can call it Shekhinah. The Shekhinah is what gives life, the life force to everything in this world. Now, the Kabbalists ask the question, I love that I'm telling you this.
Yes, you're telling everyone.
Ridiculous. But I'm just going to keep on talking. So the Kabbalists ask the question, how did God make the world? And the answer was, number one, he had to pull himself away so that, you know, if you think about an ocean that gets retracted and the land is exposed, that way people can walk on the land. If the ocean didn't retract, there would be no place for the people. And same thing with God's energy. He is everything. He is everywhere, but he had to pull himself back so that we can have the really, frankly, illusion that we are separate and we are functioning and we exist and things are separate, that you are different than I am, you're separate than I am. And, you know, these objects around me in this room are not me. That's all just my perception because of God's pulling himself back. At the same time, there's that Shekhinah that we mentioned, God's enlivening force that brings life to everything in this world. And this energy is also, it's divided into different types of energy at the same time because there's different functions to things that happen at the same time. So for example, if you ask me, Dina Chava, who are you? Well, I can say, I'm a woman, I'm a Jew, I'm a teacher, I'm a healer, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and then you say, but what are you? And I'll say, but I'm all these things simultaneously. Depends on what aspect of me we're focusing on. And that's the same with energy. There's different energies that are flowing and working because there's different functions for them in this world, in order for the world to exist. So, for example, we have the energy of chesed, which is expansive, it's giving, it's flowing. And then you have the energy of gvura, which is contraction and boundaries. Boundaries must exist in this world. Just as much as giving has to exist, boundaries must exist too, because if there were no boundaries, we would cease to exist. I mean, if you think about even social boundaries are imperative. Without them, there's anarchy. And we're not even talking about like a gangster that will go and like, you know, steal what he wants, because even gangsters have rules that they follow, who they'll hurt, who they'll protect, what they take, when they take. Even a gangster will have rules. There's no way we can fathom being alive, having a human experience without rules. So that's part of Gvura. Gvura is limitations, rules, things to hold you back. And that has an energy on its own. Everything is energy. Everything has a vibration. There's a vibrational resonance to any material, any physical material. We do know that scientifically. And also, any aspect of creation has its own resonance, including a feeling, including a thought. A thought has its resonance, and a feeling has its resonance. And that's my job as a healer in this method that I use, to pick up on the different energies and how are they doing? Are they flowing? Are they stagnant? What needs to be done here? Now, was this clear until now? Because I want to go on to the next point.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
great.
So the next point is, thank you. The next point is, I happen to come from an arts background. I'm very, very visual. So it happened, it wasn't expected, but when I learned this method, I close my eyes, I focus on a certain form of energy, I'll start seeing things. I'll see colors, I'll see patterns, I'll see people, I'll see memories, I'll see situations. I'm not
By the
a
way,
clairaudient. Yeah.
I just wanted to tell you, I don't know if you know this, it says in the Tanya that around us is Gan Eden and Gehenna, and all the good deeds you do are in your Gan Eden, and all the negative is in the Gehenna. And I have a friend, very normal guy, but he basically, when he sees someone, he says he can see things that they've done. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. Whatever.
Oh my God, do not introduce me to this person.
Okay,
That
I
would be
won't.
wow. 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 Right. So thankfully, I mean, you did point this to me once when we first met and I described what goes on with me. I did explain to you that I'm limited. I don't see things very clearly. I can't give you dates and names, and other people can. I don't. And you said to me, Baruch Hashem, because then you can be normal and function in this world. And it's true. I can only get to a certain point, and it only happens when I'm really just very focused. If it's just day to day, I pick it up in my subconscious, some things. I'm very sensitive, but I won't, I just think I won't even put thought to it. So when I treat people, I'll start seeing things. And the first thing I'll see, as soon as I humble myself enough and I feel the energy flowing, I'll look forward, and facing me is the person's higher self, looking straight at me. And the higher self is the aspect of us that's connected to Hashem at all times. It's the ideal version of ourselves. It's who we are in essence. When we came to this world, when we chose to accept the task of coming to this world from, being with Hashem into coming to this physical world where there's this tzimtzum, this withdrawal, where we experience, the experience is so very unique and different. We are, in fact, spiritual beings having a physical experience. I heard someone called Dr. Deepak Chopra say once, and I thought that's a really great way to think about it. We're just spiritual beings. So what I'm seeing is the spiritual aspect of the person looking at me. And it depends. If there's something very immediate that needs to be communicated, they'll start communicating right away. They'll communicate. I'll pick up their emotion. If they're feeling agitated, if they're feeling angry, if they're, sometimes they point at a sphira, what energy center needs to be worked on. So let's say they're pointing at a shoulder. It's not like, oh, their shoulder's in pain, please help the shoulder. That's not it. It's more the energy that's represented by that shoulder. So for example, the left shoulder has to do with Gvura. We spoke about Gvura with limitations. If they're pointing at that, it means that there's some issue with limitations that's really eating at them, that's really hurting them, that's bothering them. And then they'll show me, maybe it's a memory, maybe it's from the past, maybe it's current. So I meet up with the higher self, and right away I put them to task. I say, I need you to help me. I need you to help in this process. The person's lying there. I'm talking to their higher self, And then something interesting happens. This happens quite often, not all the time, but it does happen. The higher self doesn't want anything to do with the person that we know. There's a disconnect. There's something's broken between the two. And you know, listen, this is the part of us that's with Hashem that's supposed to be feeding us. Hashem feeds us, and if the part of us is with Hashem, that it's part of the channel that's supposed to feed us. And if they want nothing to do with us, if they're disconnecting, then you have dis-ease, then you have problems. I worked on a young woman who came to me because she just couldn't figure out her life. She was living with her parents and she wasn't sure which career to take. And she wasn't sure if she's ready to meet someone. She wasn't sure of so many things. And she told me that in the past she had a lot of physical problems, but she said, I had so many, I'm not even going to talk about it. I had so many physical problems. So I said, okay, whatever, if that's the way you want, that's fine. So I gave her, I was giving her the treatment. I meet her higher self, and there's that disconnect that I mentioned. The higher self, I wanted nothing to do with her. And I was trying to reason with it. I was just like, listen, you can't just leave her here. You can't. And I wanted to go into the feeling of why the higher self would do that. And the answer was there was apparently a traumatic event that occurred. And in this case, it must have been a past life. I hope I'm not throwing too much stuff in that's like a little weird for the viewers.
It's all good. It's all good.
Whatever happens, whatever comes up, comes up. As a healer, you just keep going. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter where the feelings come from. As long as they're there, that's what's relevant. She showed me, it's a little warm in here. She showed me an image of the young woman who I was working on, sitting in an old house, a stone old house, and she was holding what looked like a baby in her arms, and the baby was glowing with light. And then slowly the light faded and faded and faded until it was gone. And then I realized she lost the baby. And by the way, when she later at the end of the session, I mentioned this to her, and she said, I went to I don't know who read into past lives. I don't know who this person was, and she told me I lost the baby, and she told me she saw me sitting by a fireplace, and I said, no, it wasn't a fireplace. That was the baby. That was the light that you lost. So I worked with a higher self and her to try and get them to meet. And is beautiful. You might enjoy this. What worked in this case was I said, she needs you. She needs your life force. So I saw the higher self. She placed herself on the patient. The patient was lying with her eyes closed. She was sleeping. By the way, people just fall asleep as soon as the treatment starts. Usually they just fall asleep. So she was just sleeping there. And I could see the higher self lining herself up with the person on the table. And it was like, it reminded me of Elisha and the son of the Shunammite, where there's a story of what book is it? Melachim? No, it's not Melachim. Shmuel. Maybe Shmuel. There is a prophet, Elisha. He gives the gift, he prophesizes, he gives a bracha to a woman who really wanted a child. The child is born, the child grows, he's a teenager and he dies. God forbid, may we not know of such things. The woman runs to him, to Elisha, and says, you gave me this child, you gave me this bracha, and now the child is dead, go do something. So Elisha goes upstairs, he has the child lay out, and he laid his body on top of the boy's body. So he put his mouth to his mouth, his hands on his hands, and his feet on his feet, and he breathed life into him. And this is what I was seeing with the higher self and the woman. She was literally aligning her eyes and her mouth and her hands, and she was breathing into her. And as it happened, I saw her meld into the woman, and they became one. And at the moment that happened, her left thigh, I could see it as if it was made out of, I could see through it. I suddenly saw this gush of blood just rushing in, as if the place got filled up with blood. And that was, that what I saw for that particular instance. When she, at the end of the treatment, I said to her, I think you have a problem with your left leg and circulation. And she said, yes. She said, I had heart problems. Part of the problems that she had apparently were heart problems. And she had terrible problems with her circulation, especially in her left leg. Now, you can go to a doctor and they can try to help you with your circulation, right? There's many forms of healing. In this case, what I encountered was if her higher self was willing to make peace with her circulation would improve. So this is an example of what happens during a treatment. Now, I do want to make a disclaimer, and this is not like a cure. Like, this is not like go to an energy healer and you are cured. That's not what it's about. It's about the feeling that you have after the treatment. You feel calm. Maybe you can share how you felt after the treatment. It's that peace that you feel that allows you from that place to heal. So, if you're unwell and you go to a doctor, the doctor will tell you, okay, you're sick now, go home and rest. Because when you rest, your body has the opportunity to repair itself. So when you're feeling calm and centered and one, then healing can occur. So that's physical healing and also emotional healing. If you're having, problems at home, problems at work, problems, if you're finding a way to become centered and calm, the way you deal with those problems will shift completely. You will treat them, but you have to do that work. And that's what I want to emphasize. You got to do that work. Because if not, in a few days, the old patterns will just push back your energies exactly where they were before. And you'll find yourself like, either you'll say, oh, I need to make another appointment with Dina Chava, I could have wore off. Or you're like, oh, that stuff doesn't work anyway. And you just never come back again. But, the point is for you to heal. The point is for you to move on with your life, to better yourself, to grow so that you can help everyone around you better themselves and grow, and so on until we reach the golden, beautiful existence with Mashiach, where everyone in the world, everyone in the world feels God's presence at all time.
Amen. Amen. So if you could give our listeners some tips, and then I don't know if you're comfortable or not. I mean, I know that you said that it takes a lot of energy from you. So you'll tell me if maybe they could contact me via my website and I could send them to you, or if you have a mechanism. But maybe you could give people some tips, some advice for life, and then decide maybe if what kind of communication they may have with you if you want.
Okay, tips for life. I love that I'm in the position here supposedly to give the tips for life as opposed to receiving
Not
them.
many of us get to see higher selves.
But they're there. They're there all the time, by the way. They're there all the time. One day I was sitting on a rock, and it was the time of year where there was lots of thorny plants all around. In Israel, it's very seasonal. As soon as it gets dry, that's it. Everything turns to like thorns and dry. And there I was trying to balance, not fall into the thorns. And I'm crying because I opened up into something really big. And I look around and I was just like, what is with you? I'm like, just from not too far, I could see the neighborhood where my son's school is, and there's housing, and I looked at that. It's like busy town where people are coming and going, and life is happening, and I'm like, and what are you doing? You're crying on a rock? Like, are you like normal? And and then the answer came, shh, just keep going. Just keep going. It's good. This is good stuff. Because you won't heal by just being busy, busy, busy all the time, or by doing what you think you're meant to be doing. You have to stop and feel and experience. You just experience being where you are at. And that's really, really, really okay. You don't have to perform. You don't have to, I'm not saying just like zone out anytime, but I have to say, let's say, for example, I have a very troublesome, she used to be a very troublesome child, and I was called into the principal's office, and I found the guy nasty. He was just mean. He was talking about my kid in really mean ways, and he was blaming me for the kid being the way she is. I mean, the whole thing was just bad, right? And I'm thinking, and we just meet Aliyah not too long ago. My Hebrew wasn't great. I was like struggling. It just was a losing situation, wasn't good. And I said to myself, Dina Chava, get a grip right now. There's beauty, there's oneness, there's Hashem. Find it now. So I looked, they had graciously offered me a glass of water, before they pummeled me and my daughter. And on the edge of the glass of water, there was a little drop of water. It was just there, it was round, it was catching the light. So I just looked at it and I realized it's very beautiful. It's round, it's beautiful. I love the colors. It calmed me. Water is a very calming thing. And the principal says, Giveret, are you still with us? and I'm like, I kept staring at the water because I wasn't quite done. And I said, yes, I am. And, I have to say, at that moment, I was replenished. I was. So that's a tip for life. Don't be a performer. You don't owe anybody anything. Be yourself, find yourself, because that's where you find Hashem. And when you find Hashem, you're with infinite love at that moment. And there's really no greater high than that. So, and then you feel calm, and then you're relaxed, and then you can heal, and then you can heal others, and then you'll be a cup that's overflowing. And that's my tip.
That's a great tip. Can I add something to that?
Sure.
So I actually had an experience today in davening. So a lot of us, certainly if you're religious and you're Orthodox, it's kind of like a routine. And some of us get into bad habits, which, you go to school and you just daven, But so I told myself today, okay, you have to daven slow. And an amazing thing happened. All these positive ideas, all this positivity came to me. And so I think, just this concept, because God gave us these systems. I'm just going to go on a tangent if you don't mind. So everything in the Torah, Hashem tells us is Ratzoi V'Shuv. It's like a yin and a yang. Basically, there are moments of inspiration, moments of tainug, moments of joy, but also, as opposed to maybe Buddhism that you're just meditating the rest of your life, you also have to be active in this world. There are also moments of perspiration. What did God say? 6 days a week you should work, on the 7th day you should rest. And so I believe the key to life is actually good planning. And you probably know this, there was a debate in the Talmud, what is the most important verse of the Torah? So one rabbi says, the most important verse is Shema Yisrael. What's more important than Shema Yisrael? The idea of the faith. The other is like Anoich Hashem. The other is like love your fellow Jew. It's the whole thing, The fourth one said, and they all agreed he's right. You have to offer a lamb in the morning and a lamb in the evening, right? And they say, no, you're right. So you think about this. We are the only religion in history that survived under every single circumstance. There's not a single ideology in human history that was put through the test in every way, poverty and wealth, in any situation, and we survived it. We survived it because our spiritual practice had a consistency to it. And it did a lot more than almost, I would bet, that most people that practice it even realize that they're getting from it. Because if you're a religious Jew, and even though you may not even be spiritual, but you keep Shabbos, Shabbos starts to keep you, because one day a week you start to relax. And what you said before about healing, I'd like to speak to you soon about this, but offline, is a guy that it's from a NASA scientist, very, very brilliant guy. But basically, they had this problem that the guys in the space shuttle, they couldn't land it, because normally you're looking at about 5 meters away and it's helping your eye focus, but they're looking into space. So they lost that ability. So this guy devised a device. It relaxes your eye muscles and it puts you in the alpha frequency. I don't want to go too much into that. Anybody that knows about alpha frequency, basically relax. And this guy, who's a optometrist, he developed or ophthalmologist, he developed the device. And he did it on 50,000 vets, a lot of people, and it has a tremendous healing power. And so I asked him, so how does this heal? So he says, it's because they're in the alpha frequency. Once you get into the right frequency, everything can begin to happen. And so the point is that God gives us these sacred moments. And really, what you really said is that you tapped into the frequency, because you went into the woods, you got away from the rat race, and you got touched by Hashem. So there has to be a dual kind of coming, like, Moses goes up the mountain and the mountain comes to Moses, God comes to Moses. So we all, this whole mindfulness, everybody's really looking for one thing. They're looking for some tranquility. But the thing is, we were given the tools. If you just daven, but don't do it as a chore. Stop, slow down, and say it slowly. That's all you have to do. Say it slowly. It will work.
Yeah.
Have a Shabbos meal. You're lighting the Shabbos candles. Just do it slowly, with intention. Embrace the moment. It will work. Everything that anything you need in Judaism, I'm not saying that we can't go, we can always grow, etc. But the very foundation of mental and physical health, if we just did these things, but when we do it, we're like fully there. The Rebbe says, when you study Torah, pretend it's Shabbos. If the phone would ring on Shabbos, would you answer? No. Right now it's Shabbos. I can't take the phone. I can't do anything. So if we can be so present in the presence that God gives us in these beautiful opportunities, it will just kind of, like you say, that positive energy will come. And then when you're dealing with everything else in your life, you can do it in such a better way and things will function so much better. Anyway, I don't want to hog the limelight here, but so that was the tip. What do you think? Really,
So,
I'd love.
I want to add something small to that tip, because it's easier said than done. Don't, after a full day of, like, a full week of cleaning your house, getting ready for Shabbat, that moment, you got to light the candles, right? Do it slowly. It doesn't always happen.
Right.
Today I went to a naturopath, and he said to me, he talked to me about breath, and he said, breathe quickly when you want to calm yourself down. He said, breathe quickly, but exhale slower. So the inhale is quick, exhale slower. And if you try that, it will put you more in that vibration of doing things slower too. It's actually a physiological way to slow yourself down, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so much I would love to unpack. The idea of, because it really relates to Kabbalah, what you're saying, that we have the name Yisrael and we have the name Yaakov. And Yisrael actually is Li Rosh, my head. God is saying, like, you are my head, like your soul is like sourced right in God. And then Yaakov is Yud Akev. It's the Yud, it's that source in the Akev, in the heel. And it's very fascinating to me, the concept of these two souls. I can go a little forward and say that the Alter Rebbe, who people would come to and bare their soul to him and really seek great, spirituality, he said, as people come, and these were really serious, they could sometimes faint when he told them something was so emotional to them. He said, as people cry here in, like, this vicinity for, like, direction, he says, so the soul cries in heaven. And I have to say, I really don't say this publicly, but this is quite a moment that I once heard that cry. And I can tell you, there's no cry in the world like this pain of the soul that is trapped. And I mean, obviously everything we hear is really just to grow us. So it means that we really have to appreciate that there is a part of God, a literal, and the word mazel comes from the word noisel, literally a nozzle. So your energy flows from your mazel, is that divine part of you. It's noisel, it flows into you. And so as you connect that divine part, which is desperate, desperate to get back to her father, as you connect her to her father, she connects the father to you. And so we have to understand that when we do a mitzvah, anything we do, anything little, we have to look at the world in a different way, because like sometimes in religious communities, we look at it as do's and don'ts, rights and wrongs. But it's more than that. It's like a relationship. It's about connection or disconnection. And so every time you do something that connects you, you're connecting to your source and connecting to literally blessing. But anything you do that disconnects you, and a part of the challenge of being a Jew is you say, oh, there are all these Gentiles, they don't have to keep Shabbos. Yeah, well, they have 7 laws that they have to keep, and that will connect them to their source. But you're a Jew, and you have to connect to your source through these ways. It says God wanted to give us more merit, so he gave us more mitzvahs. And so it's fascinating to speak to somebody that actually kind of experiences that there is these two souls and they are connected. I'm wondering if you could tell us, I don't know if you could confirm that mitzvah, like you said, you only see these things when you go into the healing, but if you could confirm maybe about the mitzvahs having like a soul connection. I don't know if you have any info on that.
Oh my God. I have 2 women that I work on, and neither one of them, maybe one of them is becoming more and more like closer to mitzvot. I'm not really sure. I shouldn't pass any judgments. It's really not up to me, but they're pretty much living secular lives. And they have dis-ease in their lives, and they come to me for for treatment occasionally. And the message is always the same with these 2 women. Um, but one of them has a guide. I didn't even talk about the idea of guides. I talked about the higher self, but you see all kinds of things when the treatments happens. And there's a guide. We're given support when we're given support, full stop. Hashem supports us all the time, and support comes in many, 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 many different ways. And one way is a guide, some kind of spiritual along with you. It teaches you, supports you, assists you. I see the guide. The first time I saw, there was a man that always came to me when I was giving healings, right? And I was always grateful to have him around. He's a very good resource. Like I would say, I don't know what to do. And he would say, hold your hands like this. And then I would feel it'd be better. And then he'd say, oh, you're so wonderful. You're wonderful. Like he was really great to be around. Anyway, so one day I was giving a treatment, and I saw the person I was treating like walking in the distance would look like that man who always helps me. And I felt the pang of jealousy because like he left me for someone else. And then I looked, but he was right next to me. And I said, who is that? And he said, that's her guide. And I said, so are you my guide? And he's like, yeah. So that's how I met my guide. So this particular woman, not religious, really. I mean, in Israel, it's not like America not being religious. In Israel, when you're not religious, you do it with a purpose. You do it because you're a believer in not being religious. And she's not religious. And her guide is this like rabbi looking old guy, small, kind of shabby dress, simple man, but a learned guy. And he's guiding her. And, the message for her is you were put on this earth to help your people. You must go back to your roots and help your people. And until you do that, you won't find what you need to find. Actually, these 2 women have basically very similar messages. I suppose what it is that people do come to this world with a purpose. The Rebbe did say that because we're so close to the time of Mashiach, everyone who came to this world at this time clearly has done so in order to teach and to raise up. And so these 2 women, the message is always the statement, I'm always like, oh my God, do not shoot the messenger. You got to be more religious. You know, I don't, and I say, please believe me, I don't say this to everyone. I know that I'm a religious looking person, and I'm not here to try and indoctrinate you, but for you to move on with your life in a direction that is healthy for you, where you're going to find that you're going to just grow and blossom and thrive, you've got to go back to your source, and that's mitzvot. And then you got to learn, you got to find a teacher, you know, all these things come up. So I do see that for people. I do see that for people.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
a mitzvah could be, you know, shalom bayit.
Right.
And that shalom bayit comes up quite a lot. Really does come up a lot, where the husband most generally I can pick up on him as a source of stability for this woman that I'm treating, whoever she is. Most of the time, the husband is a source of stability. And I make sure that I tell her that at the end of the session, because it's my way to infuse a little bit. Maybe she'd have more appreciation for the situation of her home, of her relationship with her husband. If she understands it from a higher spiritual source, it's very clear that that's his role in her life. So that's a mitzvah also. You know,
Sure.
having a
Sure.
strong home is also a mitzvah. So yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Of course. The answer to your question is of course.
Of course. So yeah, it's amazing. You know, it says that when a person passes away, the basically, if you want to call it, the higher soul and the soul, the lower soul, come before God. And the higher soul says, "You can't punish me. I didn't do anything. There was this guy." And the lower soul says, "What do you mean?" I forgot exactly how it was. It was like, "Without him, I wouldn't be alive. Like he was my." So he puts them both together and he gives them a smack. So the point is that the higher soul is here to, it's really its mission to get you to do the right thing. And it seems like there are announcements in heaven, daily announcements even, like to do tshuva. The higher soul gets inspired, and then it might inspire someone down here. Oh, let me go do a mitzvah, or let me do something like that. But I think ultimately it boils down to the fact that God gives us free choice. And he really, in a way, is like a parent. You know, you love your child so much, but you just really, really are hoping that they make good choices, because then, you know, you get nachas from them, and also you just want for their sake that they should kind of succeed and they should be happy and they should make the right choices. So I just wanted to touch on one more thing and then maybe ask you in terms of if you wanted people to contact you, and that is the idea that people are helped, because you know, in my session with you, I would have to say, well, first of all, there was a lot of good information, right? So some of it I took, some of it I should. And second of all, there was, like you said, there was a release, there was like an opening, where now it's much easier, even though I'm quite, let's say, you know, spiritually active, it's much easier to do things that I couldn't have done before. Like they were bigger problems, like, or I knew about them, but I didn't have a handle. I just couldn't do it, you know?
Yeah.
And thank
Yeah.
God, now it's a lot of breakthroughs, a lot of able to just shift that. So you know, you're saying that really, thank you. So really, we are, I would say the Baal Shem Tov says we're spiritual warriors. So I want to ask you, what do you think this spiritual war is? And, you know, how are we guided, and how can we make use of some of those tools that we have to actually, you know, manifest, you know, get good direction, etc.
So spiritual warrior doesn't resonate with me,
Okay.
but I can tell you what I have experienced, which is a real struggle, a real struggle. It's man's connecting with God. that is what it's all about. That is what it's all about. And it's every individual has a private relationship. It's like a dance between them and God. And that's it. You know, they say that every individual is like the world themselves, as are important as the whole world. And that's what that means, because that individual, you have a relationship with Hashem, and everyone around you is just there to support you, to stay on track, to give you the opportunity to open up to Hashem. And then the next person next to you is the center of the world, and their biggest mission is to connect with God. That's really what it's about. The message that was given to me once is every person makes their own korban, their own offering to God.
It's actually today's Hayom Yom. It says that basically the holy temple is within each and every one of us. And in fact, the Baal Shem Tov said that the reason for the holy temple, and the holiest thing was that holy ark, which had the luchot, which had the voice of God, it's to say if it could happen in a building, it can happen in you. You know, you're greater than a building. And so I think that is very much the time that we're in now, the time of Mashiach, that God is connecting individually. And like you say, it's very personal. And I think that's part of the beauty of it, is it allows two realities to operate simultaneously. On one hand, we have like our world with its dynamics and with its natural laws and interpersonal laws and this and that. And on the other hand, you have this like up-down relationship with God. And what that's doing is, first of all, it's growing you, but it's also making the world better, because it's making you you're able to interact with the world. And ultimately, you know, according to Chassidus, the ultimate goal is what we call Dira B'Tachtainim, that Hashem is like coming to us. Not that we're going out to him, but rather that he's coming to us. So he's always going to be giving you more guidance, more information. Life is infinite. So our growth here in this beautiful garden is infinitely beautiful, because we're always able to learn more. And that makes the structures, that how we interact and how we. So, okay, let's conclude. I mean, it's fascinating. And I really appreciate you taking the time. And so let's say somebody says, okay, they got here, anybody got to the end here, well done. So this is if somebody got to here, then they're really serious. So let's say they want to get in touch with you. What are your feelings? I mean, it's up to you, whatever you want or don't want, you know, I fully.
Yeah, look, I definitely treat people.
Yeah.
So if somebody contacts me, then I can treat them. Like I said, I treat people remotely, and I also treat them in person. And I treated, you know, your treatment was remote, and it's not any less powerful, because, you know, they're really boundaries of distance are really just illusion, like the rest of existence. So anybody's welcome to contact me. I think maybe you can put in the comments my email address. How about that? And then people can put their phone number or contact information, and we can go from there.
Okay. So I would just say, don't contact Dina Chava for, it's not about a friendship, but if you're very serious and you want to open yourself up to some spiritual healing, it's a very powerful process. And, you know, she's a busy lady. She does a lot. And so contact her if you're serious about, you know, kind of making that commitment. So,
what is that? No. Let's just cancel that. That's really bad energy right there. That was like,
not good.
Okay. I need a fan here. It's like, clear that out.
Okay, clear that out. Clear that out. Okay.
Dina Chava is who the heck knows if she's busy or not? You know, I'm a very busy person. I go to the supermarket. You know, like that's the energy of I'm very busy.
Okay.
So
cool.
It doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
If somebody's heart feels that they want to pick up the conversation with me, just like you, I love to talk and I love
Yeah.
people and I'll be happy to speak with them. If they want me to give them a treatment, I'm available for that as well. And yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay, good stuff. Much better. Good stuff. Okay, thank you so much. Thanks.
Rabbi, thank you so much for inviting me. It's really was such a pleasure, and I'm so grateful for your trust and for your friendship. You've been really
Absolutely.
helped me so much in my
Absolutely.
life. Thank you.
You're
May
welcome.
Hashem
You're
give you
welcome.
strength to replicate that for many, many more people.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. 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 Okay.